Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nive for Femori, and as I have asked in the last interviews, you guys have told me your most favorite topic that you'd like me to address, and I almost wake up to at least a dozen questions about this topic every single day. So here I am today to talk about one of the favorite topics, masturbation. Most of the time when people talk about masturbation, they feel like they're doing something really wrong. And I think that's based on the fact that we are meant to feel great shame, if anything is related with the word sex, and also if it is related with the word self. It almost makes us feel so selfish. So when you actually sexually pleasurize yourself with another person or a husband, you don't feel guilty about it at all. And again, if you're doing it for someone else, or you're doing it for a reason to have a baby, or it's about someone else or something else, we are kind of conditioned not to feel guilty about it. The minute it comes to us and our own pleasure, we are kind of again conditioned to feel extremely selfish, and we constantly feel like we're doing something wrong because we're doing something for ourselves. Look, sexual need is something that every human being has, whether it's a male or a female, and that is something that we all have to accept and understand. When you don't talk about it, then you kind of do things very hidden, and you kind of almost do it wrong. So it is very important to actually talk about it, and I think because there is a big gap in actually women wanting to talk about it, and they're feeling almost judged because they don't know if they're allowed to talk about it. So I think judgment is again a very important factor in why women don't openly talk about their sexual needs or openly talk about their masturbation, because they feel like they're going to be judged. And when I say they're going to be judged, I also mean that most of the time, women's sexual needs and sexual wants, especially when it is, explicitly expressed outside, it is usually tend to be linked with their morale for some weird reason. And because our society always connects that, it also makes it really difficult for women to even explicitly express how they feel or what their sexual needs are. So I think these are some things that actually holds women back from what they are actually doing or want to do, and it all needs to change in the due course. The reason I think we are big on self these days, because we've kind of realized that constantly depending on other people for pleasure, or whether for care, for affection, to buy things, constant dependent on another person just leaves people with a lot of disappointment and dissatisfaction. So I think we're all starting to realize that, and we kind of, it's even for the other person, if we're constantly dependent on them and we keep our demands so high for them, it's a pressure on both ways. So I kind of feel like self-pleasure and self-care is actually a positive thing between both people, both for yourself, the other person who's in the relationship with you. It kind of makes it so easy because you kind of get into a pattern of loving yourself. So I feel like focusing on the whole self-pleasure and self-care is very important in terms of your mental health, if anything at all. So exploring yourself, giving yourself some sexual pleasure is actually not wrong at all. It is something that you're doing to take care of yourself, and taking care of yourself is actually a powerful thing and not something that people have to sympathize with. When talking about masturbation, people usually talk about addicted to masturbation and whether they are doing excessive or whether they are doing sufficient. So I always tell them it's a relative term. What your body needs or what your sexual needs are is relative. Some people may do it, every couple of days. Some might do it once a month. Some might have to do it every day. So what suits you is fine to do it, and that's okay. Excessive masturbation, like when you're using, let's say, bigger toys, it's nothing harmful, but your body is kind of getting used to and getting learned with that kind of stimulation and that size. Then let's say you find a partner for who their penis is not that big like your dildo, or are not able to do both, oral or clitoral stimulation and penetrative at the same time. Let's just say it kind of takes a longer time in reality, to be honest, for your body to like kind of unlearn what it is. It's not a side effect or anything like that, but at the same time, that's why I think during masturbation we always encourage people to try a little bit of different things, so you're constantly not doing the same action over and over and again with the same size that your body is getting used to it. So that is something probably that will really help with that. Orgasm comes from a highly elevated level of hormones. So when you're actually reaching a point of orgasm, all your endorphins and all your happy hormones have reached a peak, and that's when you reach an orgasm. And after that is finished, actually there is a drop in all those hormones, and sometimes there is this oxytocin hormone that is there, which is actually called the cuddle hormone, which kind of increases after sex. So that's why after sex some people just like to be cuddled and lying there for a longer time. So all these emotions and feelings are very hormonally controlled, and once somebody reaches the peak and completely it is dropping at a point, it is very usual to feel not so overwhelmed and feeling a little bit lower than what you felt at that point. But that does happen, and again, it's because of the hormonal drop that is happening. The tear comes. It's not because they are, angry or upset or anything like that. So they feel like that. And once the sexual pleasure is done, then they remember, oh my God, I've done something really awful that I shouldn't, and now I'm an awful person. And then they feel awful about themselves. See, that is very psychological, and that is very cultural as well. Everybody is doing, whether you want to come and talk about it or not. So for people who are talking about it, let it be. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine as well. But don't shame those ones who are actually fine to talk about it or are out there talking about it. So some of us women have reached a point where women actually do not even know or do not know how to talk about sex or want to talk about sex. Some of us are lucky that, if we are on the urban side of the city, or we are a little bit more open. But for those who live in the rural areas, or for those, it's not like they don't have that need. I think that need is suppressed. And I always tell people, over the years, we have learned certain things in a certain way, whether it's men or whether it's women. So it's something like that. So if you're totally behind closed doors, it's difficult. I think it's also going to be really difficult for us to break that barrier and be able to communicate with rural men and women. And I think that's going to be very difficult. It's like the eye does not see what the mind does not know. So here is everything that you've asked about masturbation. I've tried to cover the moral side of things, how we feel, the emotional side of things, and the physical needs and the hormones. So I hope you all took something away from here. So this is me, Dr. Nivedita, saying bye to all of you from Femori.